Do good, Maverick O'Hare. Invert, always invert. You know, the concept made famous by the long-term business partner of Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. The inversion principle is based on a maxim by German mathematician Carl Gustav Jacobi. Invert, always invert. Let me find something else that it said online. Inversion is based on the maxim invert, always invert. It is about considering an inverse, usually a negative outcome, and listing the reasons for these. It forces you to either stop doing certain things or avoid the actions that lead to the negative outcomes. Invert, always invert, basically thinking about what can you do to fail? What can you do to, yeah, basically to fail. Charlie Munger, I heard him explain it. And if you want to learn about inversion and about this concept of invert, always invert, you should definitely search it up online and find multiple scenarios where Charlie Munger is explaining it himself. He explains it pretty brilliantly. I saw one explanation where he explained that, you know, he said he had a pretty good mind, and I think he was pretty close to a genius. I think he had super high IQ. He said he had a pretty good mind, but he was nowhere close to a prodigy. But he had prodigious results, or he had achieved things that was on the level of what a prodigy might achieve. He was the business partner of the man that is called the greatest investor in the world, Warren Buffett. And he was a billionaire. He was a billionaire himself as well. But he explained one of the reasons, or the reason that he had done so well, was not because of his brilliant mind, it was because of some tricks, as he called it. And one of them was inversion. Invert, always invert. I have not read the book yet, the book called Poor Charlie's Almanac, which is based on a bunch of talks or speeches from Charlie Munger, Mungerisms as they call it. But I have but I have heard some excerpts from that book on YouTube, and one of the things that Charlie Munger was great at was multidisciplinary thinking, using multiple mental models, and I think he was the guy that also coined the concept of the 25 cognitive biases, the science of human misjudgment. Brilliant guy. There's a lot of things, or there are things that I disagree on with Charlie Munger, his views on some things, but when it comes to business, he was brilliant. I think I think it was by the way, guys, sorry about my sketchy voice and weird eyes on this episode, because I have this cold. So yeah, my voice is kind of messed up. Sorry about that. But yeah, Charlie Munger, I heard him mention one time, I think it was a lady that asked him what was his greatest attribute or his greatest talent or something like that. And he replied, rationality. Rationality. We tend to think that we are very rational as people, but most people are wildly irrational. And having multiple mental models and being able to have multidisciplinary thinking, it's brilliant. It's not just about how high IQ you have, but it's also about how you're using your IQ, how you're using your brain. But yeah, inversion, Charlie Munger mentioned one example where he used it, was like when he was In the military, he was a weather forecaster for airplane pilots. And in order to do as good of a job as possible and to avoid disastrous mistakes, he asked himself, how can I kill these pilots? It should be, it sounds brutal, but it should be kind of basic thinking to kind of analyze how can things go wrong and what can I do to avoid it. But most people would not be thinking that way. So he asked himself, how can I kill these pilots? And he came up with two most likely scenarios, I think it was. I think it was having the runways ice over, I think it was, and having them run out of fuel. He explained something like that. I'm kind of butchering his explanation here, but roughly this was how he explained it. Basically, he found out two of the most likely scenarios, and then he focused extremely much on avoiding those to happen. So yeah, another example that I've heard him use several times is when it comes to India, how can I help India? If people wanted to help India, a very poor country, a lot of people would think, how can we help India? But he said he would go about it the other way around. How could he destroy India? Or how could he kill India? Or how could he destroy India? Something like that. And thinking about it that way, you might immediately get a bunch of things coming up, and then you can avoid doing those or doing the opposite. So yeah, inversion. It's about, it's not just about finding out what not to do and not do it, but also finding out what can you do to absolutely fail, and then not just not do it, but oftentimes do the exact opposite. How can you use this in your own life? Well, this principle, this kind of disciplined way of thinking, you can apply it almost anywhere. Charlie Munger explained that himself. By now it had become, the interview I saw him, it had become habitual. So he thought like that pretty much all of the time. And we can do the same, if we train ourselves. So let's say you want to build an online business and make at least 5 figures in profit per month online. And if we take inversion on that, invert, always invert, okay, then we can think, how can you fail at making money online? How can you fail at making 5 figures in profit per month online? How can you fail if you don't sell anything? And whatever you sell, if you sell something, you don't tell anyone about it. You keep it secret. So you don't promote, you don't reach out to people. You don't get interviewed on podcasts, you don't run ads, you don't recruit affiliates, you don't promote it. That would be one sure way of not making money would be to not sell anything. If you're not selling anything, not renting out anything, how are you going to make money? Pretty basic. But you can kind of extrapolate that out and find other things as well, and then do the opposite. So if one of the key things you would do to ensure that you failed, that was to not sell anything. Okay, if you invert and you do the opposite, if to ensure you failed, you would not sell anything, do the exact opposite and sell a lot, then you will probably make money. Sell a lot. In order to sell, you probably have to do things like marketing, promotions. So, for example, creating and posting content, doing outreach one-on-one, recruiting affiliates that can help you promote, maybe hosting some kind of virtual summit, some kind of virtual event, maybe doing joint ventures, collaborations, stuff like that. Being interviewed on other people's podcast, other people's on some way of getting in front of other people's audience. If you do these things, and then focus hard on those things, you'll probably make money. Another thing you could do to, if you were to invert and you wanted to fail online, you should probably have a horrible offer that if you sold something, it should be so horrible that nobody wanted it, nobody needed it. But if you invert that, you should have a great offer that people both want and need. Yeah. But I guess you get the point. I'm not explaining this nearly as good as Charlie Munger did. So if you want to learn more about this, you should definitely search it up online and try to find several of the explanations where Charlie Munger talks about inversion. And one of the ways that Charlie Munger explained it was that the concept of inversion has its origins from mathematics. I just mentioned it. I just mentioned it in the beginning. The German mathematician Carl Gustav Jacobi. That's where the inversion principle is based from. He had a maxim: invert, always invert. And yeah, Charlie Munger explained that in mathematics, was it in algebra? I think it was, he said. For some problems, if you inverted it, you could find a solution easily. But if you did not invert it, you couldn't find it. And who knows how many examples in life where this applies outside of mathematics as well. How can I fail? When you ask yourself that, it kind of automatically makes things clearer and kind of points out priorities that might be difficult to see without doing it. Just one kind of framework or mental model to keep in mind. Interesting stuff. So yeah. And by the way, I have to mention that if you want to escape the 9 to 5 rat race and you want to build a paid community that generates at least $10,000 in profit per month, and you would like to learn from real life success stories, a bunch of them, I really recommend you check out communitycashcows.com. I'm in the process of interviewing at least 30 people that are running paid communities that is making at least $10,000 in profit per month, and I'm turning those into a book and a course and also a community. So far, I've just interviewed a few of them, but it's mind-boggling. Really exciting stuff. And if you want to escape the matrix of the 9 to 5 rat race, it might be a brilliant business model for that. Go check it out at communitycashcows.com.